Next on Married People's Business.
Before you say I do, we're talking with Clarence and Yalonda Lewis about their new book, The Rhythm of Love.
So before you listen and view this podcast, we want you to hit the subscribe button, like this video, share it with your family and friends, and learn tips on how to have a successful marriage and relationship on Married People's Business.
Stay tuned.
You heard that music, so that you know what that means, right?
It means we're back. Welcome back to Married People's Business.
Married People's Business, and
I'm
we are here. I'm Michael Tobert.
I'm Shalice Tobert.
Okay, and we got an action-packed show for you because we got some very special guests, and they wrote a book, y'all. You know, when people write books, you know what that means. That means they're smart.
Right.
That means they got a lot to share.
They got words to get out to us.
Of course.
Ideas.
Of course. So why don't you tell us who our guests are?
Today we have Clarence and Yalonda Lewis. And we are going to be discussing their new book, The Rhythm of Love, 25 Things That 25 Years of Marriage Has Taught Us.
Of course, great title. And before we do that, we always want to give the listeners and the viewers an overview of what this podcast is about. This is Married People's Business, and this podcast highlights successful married couples in business and their road to success, their triumphs, their failures, and all the things that they've learned along the way. And you don't have to be married to listen to this show. You could be a collaborator. You could be somebody, family members or two family members or a multiple number of family members that want to go into business and to build something special. So this show is to highlight that. And we also highlight people that provide tips and life skills. So the beautiful thing about these guests is that they check all the boxes. They're going to give you a little bit of everything today.
Absolutely. Right? So let me tell you a little bit that I know about them. So I first came into contact with them on Twitch. So, you know, during COVID-19.
For the old people, what's Twitch? Because when you say Twitch, I'm thinking about like my eye twitching right now. Like
no,
what you talking about?
Oh, Twitch it's an app. It's a streaming platform that was mostly brought about for gamers. But then during the COVID-19 lockdown, we had a lot of DJs streaming music after D-Nice monopolized IG.
Okay.
And Facebook didn't want you playing music to the full extent of the song. So Twitch became the platform where a lot of DJs got to do that. And that's where I first came across DJ C Sharp, aka Clarence, and Yalonda. And they had, they do still have a weekly live stream broadcast centered on R&B music and conversation about life and relationships. It's called Heartbeats in the Basement. And Clarence is a professional DJ. He plays slow jams while Yalonda chats with him and the virtual guests about the music, relationships, and just other fun topics. You know, it's very organic and very natural, and they are so down to earth with it, you know. So this book, it's about them celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary. And once, you know, they told me about it and saying, you know, this is what we're doing, we had to have them on the podcast.
And any friend of my wife is a friend of mine. So she spoke very highly of you two. And like I said, I'm just impressed with anybody that can sit down and write a book, you know. So it's a fabulous book. I like the way you lay it out. And we're going to get into that in this show. We're going to go over some of the things that I thought was interesting. And, you know, before we get this show started, I just wanted to make sure that DJ C Sharp, I wanted him to understand what the real fraternity is. Because, you know, in the process of getting ready for this show, he was confused. He sent me some blue shirt that has some stuff on it. And I was like, man, that shirt is faded. Something's wrong with that shirt. But I was hoping that he would actually give us an idea of what his fraternal life was and why he made so many bad choices along the way. But
Wow.
but that's all right.
Shots.
But we'll give him a chance to talk about that. I was hoping he would wear his shirt, but why? What happened to the shirt? Why you didn't wear the shirt, brother?
I had it on yesterday, so
DJ
DJ gig, so I couldn't. So
He wore it
I
out.
wore it out. I didn't want. I didn't
Well, welcome you all.
it's always in my heart.
Of course. You know, man, we always joke, but it's all love. We're all brothers, so you know, it's just we always joke like that. So go ahead.
We have half of the, almost half of the D9 right here.
We sure do.
Yeah, we do.
Yep.
We pretty much do.
Most
Yeah.
definitely. Most definitely. Well, let's get into it.
Yeah. Well, welcome you all. So, we always want to open the floor and, tell us a little bit about yourself, background. I know it's kind of in the book, but, we're going to open it up to you, get you introduced to our viewers and listeners.
I'll let her start.
Okay, ladies first. My name is Yalonda Lewis, as you said, and I have a background in public health, in qualitative research, and health communications. And let's see, we have 2 kids. One
They're not
21.
really kids, no, but they were kids.
They're 2 offspring. Yes.
2 offspring.
One 21 and one
That's funny.
18. Our youngest is starting his freshman year in college, and our oldest is still home with us.
There's no campus on this campus.
No.
What? What school does that young man go
There are
to?
Sigmas though. There are no campus on this campus.
I see how this is going to go.
It's a good, I was gonna say it doesn't matter whether he wore the shirt or not, like he said, it's hard. So
Yeah.
always speaking up loudly.
Yes, he is. That's a beautiful thing, though.
So I have been, and like I said, a public health researcher. I have been a stay-at-home mom and caregiver for our eldest daughter who has autism and intellectual disability. And I have been a business owner, co-owner with Clarence. We had a previous business before writing the book. And now I'm back in public health on Twitch and talking about this book as much as I possibly can.
Cool.
I have an IT background. I only started DJing because we eloped, which we do talk about a little bit in the book, but we eloped. So at our 15th vow renewal, our 15 years, we decided to have a vow renewal.
Mm-hmm.
Have a real,
have a
the
ceremony
whole wedding,
and invite people, the guests,
tuxedos, all of those things. And in the process of doing that, I asked a friend of mine to DJ a portion of the wedding in between the sets of the band. And he said he didn't have time. So I said, well, I'll try it. So I went in the basement and downloaded some software and just started playing around and made a hour-long mix that we used. And that was the beginning of my DJ career because I liked it.
Wow.
Oh, that is a wonderful story. That means you, Clarence, you're a Renaissance man. You can do so many things. That's a lot of talent, because I don't know if I would have been able to do that. We just probably would have just had no music.
No, we would have had music. As much as I love music, I would have made a mixtape, had my sister burn some CDs or something. It was going to be some music, whether I was singing or not, whatever.
Well, I think this is a good time to really give the title of this podcast, which is Before You Say I Do. Yeah. And your book, The Rhythm of Love, is what it's called, right? Mm-hmm. Your book, first of all, we want to give you some product placement here. There you go. The Rhythm of Love. Folks, go out and buy this book. It is just fabulous. And it inspired really the title of this podcast because we think it should be essential reading for anybody that is even thinking about getting married.
Yes.
Before You Say I Do, I think you should read the Lewis's book because it provides some very great information about just the relationship and the institution of marriage. Not only before, I love the way that you gave a historical account of you two and how you got together, but also some of the things that have happened after you've gotten married in your, number of years. You're 26 years, right?
Right now,
now 26 years.
Yeah.
The book referenced 25, but you grew an inch, I think is what we said, right? When we talked before.
Yeah.
So you just give so many jewels and knowledge over the 26 years of marriage that you guys have been a part of. And I think you share it with the world, and everybody should read this book. So why don't you tell us what inspired you to write the book?
I would have to say the Twitch community. That's really the simplest term, the Twitch community. Last year, for our 25th anniversary, because we couldn't go outside and have something big or celebratory, we just thought it would be kind of cool to just do a celebratory stream where we talked about some things, and we didn't know what we were going to talk about, and we said we would. So we sat down and we brainstormed, and we said, hey, let's list off some things that we've learned and have some fun with it. And that's what we did for our stream. And after that stream, our phone wouldn't stop ringing. So, and everyone saying how helpful and useful the information or the tidbits, that's what we'll call them, that we gave were. I was honestly surprised and shocked. So then someone said, you should write this down. And I never considered myself an author. I mean, I took English 104 times in college. Right? So I never considered myself an author of any type. So, but we got some help from some friends, some other people who we met on Twitch, some family friends, and we put a structure to it, and we said, we can do this. And we started writing, I would say we started writing in September, and by April we were done.
Wow. That seems like a short amount of time for you to be novices at this.
We committed to writing something every week. And even I went as far as had an accountability partner that I would sit with. She's also an author. And we would sit together on Monday nights at 9 p.m. every Monday.
9 to 10:30.
Lock the doors, keep out all distractions, and we would just write. We wouldn't even really converse between the two of us. We would just write. That was we said we're going to get in an hour. We're both moms and, have other responsibilities and things, but it really helped to just crank through. And people, if anyone is like me, I could have seen myself getting stuck in the editing phase. Oh, every time I read it, I want to change something. Oh, I could say that a little bit better. I can make that more clear or more funny or whatever. And at some point, you just have to stop editing. So that was the thing.
I've read it a couple of times since we finished it, and I can still find places where I say, yeah, I should have changed. I should have said this instead of that.
Right.
And it's just never ending. So
at some point you have to release and let it go into the world and do what it's created to do, and not look for perfection. So I think that helped us, say we had a goal of we want to start promoting it on our 26th anniversary. So by our 26th anniversary our actual anniversary is in July. That was kind of a goal too, to make sure that we were able to start promoting it around that next anniversary.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, I think one of the things that I like about the book is, first of all, I can see your love for music, both of you, the imprint all through the book, because it's organized in a very, it's just laid out really, really nicely, just like a CD. I might be showing my age. I said CD. These kids, they streaming. I don't know what they say, but albums, 45s.
Did you just say albums and
tracks.
45s? Tracks.
But you call them tracks.
Yes.
Each chapter is a track, and I thought that was an extremely creative way to really introduce to the world some of the issues that married couples go through. Yeah. And one of the things that I saw in track 2, which was, I thought, really hit my heart was I could not tell based on talking to you two that you were opposites, that you guys are, you kind of don't, you're different. You know, you guys, you seem to really, really jive so well. So how, who's the introvert? Who's the extrovert for the audience? I know who it is because I read the book, but could you explain, you know, when did you realize that you were opposites, and how were you able to overcome that and still be happily married for 26 years?
Realize it from day zero. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There was a little bit of a sound drop on this side. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, you're good.
We realized it at day zero. I mean, that was part of the attraction, I think, between us, in some ways, because he could have fun pulling me out of my shell, and I could just, laugh at his antics without interrupting him with my own. And so it was still, it had it except that we were very much attracted to each other.
Right. So I mean, so we went to here's an example. We were dating. We went to my friend's house for a cookout over the summer. My best friend. He was the best man in my wedding, all those things. She knows him very well now.
Yes.
She didn't know him at all then, but she knows him very well now. And we walk into his house and I introduce her. I say, hey guys, this is Yalonda. Everybody says hello. And then I just go off.
Away.
I mean, because at that point,
these
these are my family members. That's how close we are. So you don't need to hang around and walk with me. So after that, she like, don't you ever leave me by myself.
I stayed in that same spot the entire time.
But now, I still do the same thing, but now she's fine. So I worked her out.
And over time, he had to check with me over, are you okay? He wouldn't leave until he checked with me. You good?
Oh,
and
wow.
He would, he has to go mingle. He has to see everybody. Yes. Whereas I'm fine with whoever I click with from the beginning of the party, I'm probably going to be hanging out with that person for most of the party. Or somewhere in there, I'm going to find someone who matches my energy. We got a good conversation, or we both like to dance, and that's going to be where I am.
So Yalonda, that's why you got left when he went to go pick up the kid at the daycare, because you gotta work on that punctuality. It sounds like.
Oh my goodness!
I'm with you on that, Clarence. I would have left her too, man. The baby was sitting on the. I had all this. This was going through my mind. All I could see was a baby on the steps. The parents had left. The poor kid was on the steps alone, and you were the hero. You had to save your kid.
That baby.
So I'm with you.
That baby was fine. Who was doing most of the pickup? I knew that baby was perfectly fine.
Man, that's all I saw. I saw a kid in distress, and Clarence say today.
Goodness.
That's what I saw in the book when I read the book. That's what went through my mind.
So Hollywood.
Exactly how he wanted to present it. He can look like the hero.
Yeah,
that's fine. I let him have his hero day.
We pick our battles.
Yeah,
they caused a huge rift for a while.
Yeah. What track was that? That was what track was that? Let me see.
The time track is Time Will Reveal.
Time Will Reveal.
Yeah.
Yes, that's 15.
15, yep.
Yes.
Track 15. Yeah, so I thought that was a fascinating story because it not only highlighted your differences, but it also highlighted how you have to compromise to work with each other and maybe give and take in a relationship, because maybe leaving her wasn't the best mode. Maybe wasn't the best option, but
it wasn't the best option. But I was a little bit young. I was a little bit impulsive. I hadn't grown enough just yet. I wouldn't do it today. At least not without telling her I'm leaving. I would at least say I'm leaving. So, I wouldn't
and then would you really leave even though you're saying I'm leaving?
Probably not.
Okay. All right.
Inches way toward.
for every minute I'm late.
You'll be sitting in the car just waiting for her to come out to the car to
I
realize
have
that you
been in
had
the
walked
car
out.
waiting for her to come
Yes,
out.
he
I have been
Yes.
has.
in the car.
See,
Things
it's
are
called
very
growth.
different with our time.
Yes.
Yes, he just sits back and I'm coming.
That
I
is
know
that
what
is
time
growth.
we need to leave here. I'll be there then.
So who came up with the idea about writing this book, the chapters, making them tracks like music? Whose idea was that?
I think it was hers.
Yeah, we were struggling with some of the titles. Just trying to find catchy ways to capture what we were trying to say in each chapter. And the first thought was, it would be nice if we could pick a portion of the song, a verse, or a lyric that gives, really gives you what we're going for. But of course, that would be copyright infringement. So,
Yes. But you know what else I like too? There's a chronological order to the book, but you can also take each track, aka chapter, by itself and learn something from it.
Yes.
And that was part of the goal, was that you didn't need to read it necessarily from cover to cover to get what you needed. That was part of the goal.
Yes.
And I think
we wanted it to be broad and received by lots of people, not just avid readers, but people who could use the information who wouldn't typically open a book. It's nice and compact.
Yes.
And each chapter is a quick read, so you're not bogged down. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that goes directly to the point that Michael made at the beginning, that people should read this before they're married, because you can go to any track and learn something, and it teaches you or take something from everything, with the foundation of not having read it cover to cover. And then I also, in these types of books, go back and say, okay, remember that one part. Let me go back and look at that again and see what it says. Am I my behavior following that, or did I change, or how can this help me change?
Right.
Well, did you read the track about listening to your husband? How many times did you read that track?
Well, let's talk about how many times I've read The Power of a Praying Wife. Because I surely go back to that one.
I was like, Clarence wrote that. It was like he was speaking to me in that track when he was like, y'all ladies got to listen to y'all husbands, and then life would be a lot easier. I think that was, what track was that, Clarence? I think that was.
I'm not sure we had that.
I had that joint. I had that joint on repeat. I had it on repeat. I had it on loop. It was like looping,
That might be on the cutting room floor.
I was like, Shay, when she go to sleep, I just hit the track, and so it'd like just get in her head. Just,
you know what? I can't.
5 years. That's how they lasted for 20 years.
You know what? This
though,
one.
if another book comes out, that'll be one of the tracks.
Don't you mess up your stuff.
Man,
Well,
you know what?
I was just about to say, Yolanda, don't you
You
mess
know
up
what,
your
Clarence,
stuff.
aka David Ruffin, you need to go ahead and write that solo joint, man. Just how to listen to you got to listen to your husband solo.
You
I'm
got
David Ruffin. I'm the Temptations.
What a great reference. What a great reference.
I'm just like, really? He went the David Ruffin route.
Yeah, man,
and these are the Temptations.
Yolanda the Temptations, man, on that book.
It's
And they great together, but on the book on how to, that's a man's point of view that I want to hear Clarence deliver the message.
You know what? We're gonna move on.
Ashalagabanga.
Go the road of David Ruffin. He might have a hit or two.
Right. We got about
The
two.
Temptations gonna get a movie made about us. And everything.
They still trying to tour with the one that's alive.
Oh my God. Yeah, man, But I'll tell you what, the one track that I thought was very intriguing to me was the track on religion. I think it was track 10. And I'm like, Yolanda, boy, that's a bad girl right there, boy. Yolanda said, yo, you got to change your religion before you be with me. And Clarence said, okay, baby.
Just like that.
It wasn't quite like that.
Clarence said, Jesus. I think that was track 10. But you know what I would like for you to share for the people and viewers and the listeners is that is a oftentimes an overlooked issue when it comes to religion before you get married. And everybody just like, he fine, she fine. And they don't necessarily think about the aftermath of once you get married, that on Sundays, people go to church a lot of times.
Right.
So when you have, a Muslim and a Christian together and they don't necessarily talk about, religion before they actually decide to jump the broom, it ends up being messy once they do get into a relationship. So I would like for you to share with, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm interrupter.
No, you're good. You're good.
I was going to say that it's not even only just on Sunday mornings that those differences come up. The differences in how you're going to raise the children, there are differences in how you solve problems. And if one is believing in prayer and one is just saying we'll figure it out on pen and paper, then there's lots of ways that can cause a rift between couples that you don't even recognize, especially if you're raised in the church and you just have these long-standing traditions of, we go to mass on Christmas morning and those type of things. So for me, I think, if I were to get married today, I would probably do something a little bit different in terms of the way I might approach it. But at the time, I had just seen, I had, my father is a preacher, so I had a little bit of an inside track on how marriages were faring in our church and how difficult. I just knew that marriage was difficult. My parents didn't have a breezy marriage, I'll say. So I just knew that having some type of central value system that we can both go to say who can be our referee, who can be where can we go to get our common principles when we have disagreements. And so that's what that meant to me at the time, was just, can we get on the same page about something so fundamental to me as my existence.
Yeah, that was just a fascinating chapter. And my mind, I have a very creative mind. So when I was reading that, I was just picturing you coming in with holy water, just throwing it on Clarence like The Exorcist. Did it happen quite that way, or was it a little bit
so extra?
And then Clarence like elevated in the bed like on The Exorcist. Like, he didn't do that.
My goodness.
And then we said, now we can be married.
He's such an embellisher. He levitated.
He levitated low, right? That's what I saw in my mind. I'm just saying, I was reading the book and that's what I saw in my mind. But
But how was that received though?
Felt that way.
Yeah.
You had a loss for words.
She gave me I don't want to say she gave me an ultimatum, but she gave me an opportunity. And that's what she said. I was ready to, I don't come from the same fabric that she comes from, meaning, my parents didn't go to church very much, even though my mother's Baptist, my father's Catholic. They didn't go to church very much, but at the same time, their marriage, at least from what they allowed us to see of their marriage, was great. Very few arguments, very little discourse in their marriage. So it would have never dawned on me to say, I see all these other marriages falling apart, because I'm in a house that's just not the case. I have what I consider to be a very solid example of how things should be. So in my mind, I didn't have the same concerns that she had. But if you love her, you try to allay those concerns. You say, I pride myself on being open-minded. I will not close you away because I don't agree with what you're saying, even though I don't agree. But let's figure it. Let me take a moment to prove to you that I'm right and you're wrong. That's what that was with that whole, let me take a moment to prove that I'm right and you're wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'll say to you, you were right, and then we can move forward from there. But I'm not going to be dismissive of you off the top.
Right.
No, go ahead.
We have some friends, one of a close friend that we share who kind of took Clarence under her wing, as it were, to say, come with me to church. You respect me. You think highly of me. Come with me and see what she's talking about. And I can't remember if your dad, was he like on my side or on your side? Okay, I didn't think he was on my side.
Which that's interesting because your father is a preacher, right?
No, his dad. My father is a preacher.
Yeah, your father.
His dad is the one who was like, well, let her go then.
Oh, I got you. I follow you. So his dad, he drew the line in the sand. Clarence's dad is what I'm hearing.
So a lot of times socially, we always think about how we protect our girls. We protect our girls from predatory activities that the men do to them. But my father doesn't have any daughters. He only has sons. So he feels the same level of protection for his sons that people feel for their daughters. So his thing was, you're college educated. You gotta, and this is, I was about 23 at the time, 22, 23. You're college educated. You got a good job. You got a house. You got a car. It's not a woman alive that is in your age bracket who wouldn't think that you were good enough for them. And for her, in his mind, and for her to try to lump this on you is unfair. You don't necessarily need that. Now, let me turn this 26 years later. He called her all the time. He don't call me names.
We have good conversation.
That's the way it works.
So,
even at the time, he never treated me any differently. I don't think either. So yeah, he was. Not the kind of guy. No, he's not. So it didn't cause a rift between us or anything, but it's just interesting to know. I don't think I knew at the time how much he was not. He was ready to see me all. Yeah, this is true. The dads would have us apart.
wanted to run me over with a tractor.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
My dad worked landscaping on our college campus, and when Clarence and I were dating, and Clarence basically lived with me on campus after his junior year.
And campus is North Carolina. Said North Carolina.
This is when we were at UMBC, University of Maryland. We were in undergrad, and he practically lived with me in the campus dorm apartments.
Okay.
And so one morning, my dad was on a big tractor driving by and saw Clarence coming out of my apartment building.
Oh wow!
Early. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning.
He was on his way to work. He said it was all he could do not to
run him over.
He thought about going to jail. He said, I can't go to jail. So let this man live.
That is funny.
Wow, that's hilarious.
And we didn't know until years later when he said it. He spoke and everything that morning, and we didn't think nothing of it. But years later, I wanted to run you over with that.
Oh wow, you was messing with daddy's girl, man, at college. Yes. Come on.
Exactly. So both of our dads had their protective times.
Yes,
that's the way it should be. Yeah, that's the way it should be. Now, where are both of you from?
We're actually from the same area. I went to elementary school in Northern Virginia. We're from the DMV, so the district, Maryland and Virginia.
Okay.
Really close together. All of the Maryland, Virginia, both border DC, and consider kind of one area. But we went to different elementary schools, but he and my sister went to the same elementary school at one point. He and I went to the same middle school at one point, not knowing each other, not at the same time. And then we were in college together for 2 years before we ever met.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
We had just been orbiting each other's space
A long time.
A long time, for many years before we ever even met. So yeah, we're
Wow.
both from the same area. So that makes it easy. We have that in common.
Yeah.
You know, we both like to, when we lived in North Carolina and we're going to UNC, we did a lot of hitting the road, traveling, coming back to the DMV because that's where our hearts were.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So then I've got a question.
Mhm.
Sure.
What was it like transitioning from working on the stream together to writing this book together?
I'm gonna start this.
Together.
It wasn't easy.
So I was gonna say together is the key word.
Yeah.
What chapter is a
Wasn't
chapter where we say we don't work together well?
Chapter 2.
Pick up the pieces. Yes.
Pick up the
Pick up the
pieces.
pieces.
We don't. So when I mentioned earlier on the podcast how we had this process of deciding we were going to write the book. So when we said, okay, this is what we're going to do, I was all in. Within a week and a half, within 2 weeks, I had 3 chapters written.
Oh, wow.
And was continuing to plow through it to the point where I said to her, "Are you
Are
going
you
to
really
ever
gonna
go write
do-
anything?" And she would be like, I am. And I said, if you don't want to do the book, then just say I don't want to do the book and I'll stop wasting my time.
It was taking me a longer time to
Yes.
come to terms with the fact that we were going to write this book. Who am I? I am not a writer. I hold the skill and the talent of writing and authorship pretty high. I like to read. I've been a reader since I was a kid. And I'm just like, you know, how do I get myself in a position where I think I'm going to write something that is worthy of to be printed? So it did take me a little bit to kind of accept that fact that at least we can try. We give it our best. And we had an editor on board who we were going to send it to. And we had my author friend said she would read it. So at least we would have some stops along the way. Yes, his mom was also an avid reader, would read it for us. And that was my question just all along. Is it worth printing? Is it worth printing? Is it something that people will read?
Right.
So yeah. I finally got myself into gear.
And once
I
you got
started
into
putting
gear,
something on paper. The author friend of ours said, you know, your first draft could just be words. Just all your thoughts, just dump them onto the page. Don't
Right.
think. Don't edit yourself as you're writing. Don't, you know, backtrack. And she said, even if you can't think of the word, just type the phrase. I'm going to put something here that means X, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So, you know, just keep, you know, and the more you get into the practice of putting your thoughts into printed word, the more smoothly it goes, the more it flows. And she was right. You know, the first chapter I wrote, Lord have mercy. So yeah.
So did you all write in the order that it ended up being printed, or from this, I'm gathering
at
you just
all.
started writing whatever was coming
Just-
to mind?
Yeah, whichever was for me, it was whichever was the lowest hanging fruit of where I felt like I had the most material
Yeah.
ready and prepared to talk about. And I don't know, for you, how did you?
so we had a list of, I told you, it wasn't called, the tracks weren't called what they are now, but there was a list that said, these are the topics. Right. We were picking topics, putting our names next to things.
Right. So he was saying that in the beginning, when we did the stream, we each brought a different topic to the stream, and we had compiled that into a list with each of whoever was the contributor of that topic, their name was next to it. So he just went down the list
of things
of that Clarence, you know, here Clarence's topics, and he just went down, boom, boom, boom.
Right. Pretty
Yeah.
simple. And then we came back later and organized them, because if you read it, and you guys have, they're not Clarence, then Yalonda, then Clarence, then Yalonda.
Right.
It might be 2 Yalondas and then
Right.
Clarence, and then
Right.
2 Clarence. And so it was how we thought
They fit
they
together.
fit together. That's
Yeah.
how
Mhm.
that's how we thought they fit together. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm sure that's how a music producer feels when they're putting songs together. Is, you know, does one flow well into the next one?
Right.
Absolutely.
That was the
Right.
goal. we hope we got it right, but you know,
No,
someone already told us that we should have moved the outro
to the end,
Was
to
it
the
outro?
beginning.
No,
The chapter 25.
the bonus track.
Yeah, the
Wisdom.
bonus.
Someone said that should have been the very first track.
but you know, okay,
It was
but
already
like,
been edited.
well, like we said before, you know, you don't have to read it in order either to get the nuggets from it. So
Exactly.
yeah, so you
It's
can go
not
back
about
to
chronology. Right.
Yeah,
You can
you-
read it however it speaks to you. Yep.
yeah.
I agree, and I was really struggled when I was getting ready for this podcast because I wanted to talk about all the tracks, but then I'm like, man, they're gonna go buy the book. We gotta leave some for the
Right.
people, you know. So we got to just give them a
Right.
little something. But it's just really hard not to talk about all the tracks because all of the tracks really offer so much information for folks that are thinking about getting married or also folks that are currently married. Like there were 2 tracks about sex that I just thought were phenomenal tracks because you kind of flip the concept of sex on its head, you know, in terms of how people view it and how married couples really weaponize sex as instead of looking at it differently. And I'm like, man, Shay, so when you get mad at me, you supposed to give me some. So that's what I took.
So-
That's what I took out the track. That's what when I was reading that track, that's what I heard.
That's
Like,
what you heard.
So instead of you like, you know, hold it, you know, why don't you
what
tell
I
us a
want-
little bit
You know
about
what?
that?
Yes, Shalise. What I wanted you to take out of it
Thank you,
was
please.
that you're setting an environment and a tone in the relationship such that she trusts you enough with her whole self that when you aren't exactly behaving the way you know you promised or the way she would like you to, she's not even considering whether she's going to have sex with you or not because she's already determined that that's an important part of our relationship. He's not going to take advantage of that and say, oh, well, she couldn't possibly be mad at me. She couldn't possibly want more from me because she getting some.
Yolanda, I didn't get that from the
You
track.
didn't get
You
that?
know what? Let me tell you. But you know what's so ironic about that is that we were in a couples retreat at our church.
That's right.
And the co-pastors had brought that up that
Yeah, they
they
sure
gave us
did.
an instance that one morning they were arguing with each other and just going at it. And then the husband had to be at work, but was like, we're not about to leave this day like this. And that using that intimate act of sex helped them clear whatever it was they were doing or arguing about and bring it down so that they could talk about it with all the clear head that they could have after that and not be
Did you
angry.
just say clear head?
Shuts. You see how I was hesitant about that because I knew that the 12-year-old in him would say something. The clear mind.
Where your mind at? I'm
clear
just repeating
head.
what you said. That's all.
But there was no need to even repeat that.
Okay,
at
all right,
all.
go ahead.
But that was something that they talked about seriously. And so seeing that in your book, I was like, okay, this isn't, new because they were telling us that, sex shouldn't be used in that way of depriving one another.
Pillow Talk,
Right.
track 22. I wrote it down.
Right.
Oh, you and the pillow
Right.
talk.
Yeah, that's the
Pillow
track.
Talk.
That's the track we gonna reread.
That's the best kind of talk. Pillow talk. That's how you solve things. That's how things move forward.
Oh, yeah.
Resolution, right
If the
there
person
on
is
your pillow.
awake.
I'll tell you what, this has been a
Don't
great
knock
pot.
them out, Shalise.
That was,
This has been a great discussion. What I would like for you guys to do is I want you to talk to 2 different audiences right now. I want you to talk to the person that's 6 months out before they're about to get married. They're about 6 months out. What would you tell them is the most important thing for them going into their marriage? And then the second group is the folks that are maybe struggling, maybe at the 10-year mark of their marriage. What would you tell those 2 groups?
Yeah, I'll do the young because I do it all the time.
Okay.
So okay, all right. I'll do the 6 month and she'll do the
All right, that's great.
So the 6 month, I would tell people, and we write about it in the book, which is The things that you just don't like about this person are not going to get better because you decide to get married.
Okay.
Marriage will never minimize or reduce the things that bring you stress in the relationship. In fact, they will do the opposite. They will exponentially make them worse. So what bothers you today will drive you insane 2 or 3 years into that marriage. So understand that and try to figure out whether or not you can live with the question of, will they ever change it enough for you to be satisfied? They may change it, but it may not be enough for you. So you need to understand that and figure out if you can make it through with this. Now, to some degree, you don't ever really know until you are actually in it, but those are questions that you can start to ask yourself and understand as you're going into this relationship, and start to really pay attention to those things, because they're beautiful, easy to look at, all those things. But I can tell you, they on somebody's nerves at some point in time. They're on somebody's nerves. So you don't want that to be your issue. So
no doubt,
work through that before,
no doubt.
At least talk about it.
If she's late, or if he's likes to go golfing a lot,
that sounds like a Clarence problem.
That might not change.
So the 10 years, Yalonda, tell us what you think you.
Nearly as much as I used to, though.
Yeah.
So the 10 years.
If after 10 years, if you're struggling, I would say the flip side of what Clarence said about things not changing is it might be. I think that sometimes we can, as married couples, forget that we're on the same team. Like we both want this thing to work. We both want the best for each other. It's just that my approach doesn't quite match your approach. My first thought, my first way of doing it doesn't quite match yours. But if we circle back to the things that brought us together, why are we here? What do I love about him? How can we remember, can we use that to remember that we're on the same team? And that, so then the argument is not who's right or who's wrong. The argument then becomes, how do we get this resolved so that we can move forward? Let me understand, why is it that this is so important to you? Or, why is it that you always forget? You seem to always forget X, Y, Z. What can we do together to make sure that that's not happening? Clarence had to come to some changes in himself over my time issue, at the same time that I'm coming to some changes as well. Or, because in the end, we both want to go to the party or to the outing or to the wedding or to and we both want to, have a good time and not be sitting there steaming, So, and then, whatever the issue is, there's got to be a solution that pulls us together, as opposed to having to pick between who's right and who's wrong.
I like that.
I do too. And that I think the perfect way to end this podcast and this segment is, not to divulge too much information from the book, because I really, really want people to go out and buy it. So we've only talked about a few tracks, so we haven't given your whole book away online. We've given the folks, the viewers and the listeners, just enough to pique their interest.
Just
but
enough.
But
just a taste.
But I tell you, the Rhythm of Love was one of the very few books that I've read on relationships that really identify crystal clear one of the two biggest culprits of marriage failure or relationship failure. And I think it was in one of the tracks where I believe it might have been your father, Yalonda, that said there are two reasons why marriages fail. And I think he said sex and money.
Sex and money.
Yeah.
And one.
And not enough of the other.
Yeah. Why don't we end with that and tell us a little bit about that concept and how that is, if you're talking to folks that are in marriage and they're having problems in that area, what would you tell them?
So
And we
what's-
have.
what's
We
the-
have.
we have. So I can give you some. I know I said my parents have been married, and they've been married now, I think, for 47 years, but there's some nuance to that. And what I mean by that nuance is my dad and my biological mother got married before I was born, and they got divorced when I was about 3. So the woman who I'm referring to as my mom is my stepmom, but she's been raising me since I was 7. So I needed to make sure that that's clear for the next part
Need
that
the
I'm going to say.
background.
Gotcha.
Which is my dad and I have talked about what happened in his first marriage, or in his marriage to my mom. And what he has said is, I was working every day trying to make sure that she had everything that she needed, because that is the life that I thought that she would want. You know, I got her a house, we bought a car, we did all of these types of things. But what I didn't realize at that time was, in order to do those things, I had to be gone all the time.
Right.
So she was at home by herself so much that eventually she just decided that, you know, this marriage wasn't worth it for her. So that is an exact example of what it means when it says too much of one and not enough of the other. Because
Got plenty of money.
he had
He was
plenty of
making
money,
money.
but he had no time for any personal relationship and no intimacy. So I don't know what kind of sex they was having. That's the conversation I'm not having with my father.
They had something because you was born.
Right.
They was doing what they was doing, but we don't talk about that. They was doing what they was doing. But the point was, that was a great example of that. And the opposite of that is, you know, people go out and they're seeing new girls or seeing new women, and they're, you know, spending time with them and maybe sleeping with them. And that typically means that you are having too much sex. And,
Right.
and so it was very clear to us, because we've
It's
seen
just so
it,
many,
we've seen it happen
so
over
many
and over again.
convolutions of that same thing, where it's really not the sex and the money per se, but those are what, in American society at least, or in this present day, that we're taught to measure success by. A successful relationship, they having lots of sex, and that it's hot, it's sizzling, you know, they're a hot couple. And or, you know, a successful, you know, person in their career is making lots of money. And, you know, so if you can have both, what's the reasons a lot of people get married? They have all the sex they want. They are supposed to, you know, combine 2 incomes, or just, you know, make that family, make that money, build. All those terminologies we use are all relate back to money. And it's usually something else going on that, you know, as Clarence was saying, his dad was just trying to provide. And then his mom was just trying to have some time, some quality time, not be alone. And so it's always, you know, you're going to see the sex and money problems, the biggest and the largest, and they're going to impact us. But it's usually a symptom of something else that's going on between us that we're not, you know, we're not talking about. We have different expectations of what a man, what a husband, or what a wife, or what a marriage is supposed to do and look like.
That is a wonderful way.
So tell everybody, tell everybody where they can get your book.
I got you. I've been doing stuff. You'll see a scroll.
Look at that.
www.cyllentertainment.com. You can go to that website and order it. It's also available on Amazon. About 2 weeks from now, I'm not sure when this podcast will air, but we will be on audiobook real soon. I think sometime.
Awesome.
I will be on Audible.
October. We should be on Audible and Barnes and Noble and all those other places. So it's available at every major outlet that you can think of, online and digitally. But if you want a signed copy, you gotta go to that link right there. Yeah, and they got signed copies. Exactly. You want a signed copy, you gotta do it from there. Those other places, they just give you warehouse stuff. Right. You're gonna get the nice penmanship that my wife had. Those nice notes and stuff.
Yes.
Well, Yalonda and Clarence, I just want to say that you guys are truly a blessing to Shalise and I for doing this podcast, and just for folks that are in the process of getting married and folks that are currently in marriage. Your book is a gift. from God, from above. And Shalisa and I wish you nothing but success in your future endeavors.
Absolutely,
Thank
absolutely.
you. Same from us to you. This is such a blessing. We watch/listen to your podcast regularly, and we're so proud of what you guys are bringing forth. Love your chemistry on air, on screen, and just all the topics. I'm always surprised at where you take things. So it's so pleased to be here. So pleased to be counted within your number, within your ranks. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Married People's Business. That's another episode in the
Yes.
books. The Lewises. Go out and buy Rhythm of Love today. If you haven't already purchased it, you will not be disappointed. Married People's Business. God
Yes.
bless.
God bless.
Take care.